Hello YouTube, PamAnnJett here coming to you at odd angles. I'm basically sitting in my living room with my computer up on the arm of the sofa because of the fact that that is how I'm sort of getting better lighting-ish. Um, and it's comfy. It's just fucking comfy. So I'm doing it this way. Because I tried to do it on a flip cam and I don't know why, but it came up as no picture and only sound. And that sucked, and it was a huge waste of time, so now I'm just sort of doing a little chill video. Because I wanted to do one today, because I've been getting a lot of pressure from a lot of people to do more videos. Couple of things. The Choy Dragon. Very fond of the Choy Dragon. Look it up if you're not already aware of it. Two, and in a similar vein, the Wilkins Coffee commercials. Those. Still Alive, the theme song from Portal. If anybody isn't aware of it, go look it up. I'll put things in the description. Links. I'll put links. I had much more energy when I did the first video. That took like it was actually like 15 minutes. I was gonna cut it into two. It was gonna be great. You're never gonna see it because it didn't work out that way. Unless I get frisky and want to do like a crazy picture montage with the narration. Had a very strange conversation with I think one of my subscribers. It was somebody who had posted a comment on one of my Avatar videos. Who sent me, the conversation started off strange and sort of got progressively stranger and ended with like a sort of half-assed attempt at converting me, I think. As a young kid, like 15, and I understand people at that age, you know, their religious, their feelings on religion, their feelings on God are mostly inherited from their parents, and aren't given a lot of thought in of themselves. And I'm not saying this is a general across the board statement, but a lot of them. Just people just don't at that age think a lot about it and are mostly just handed religion from their parents. This person, he was sending me requests about videos that I should do that really weren't the kind of videos that I do, which is like this, which is mostly talking into the camera, and the very rare occasion, the 2 times that I've done photo montages to songs. So I was like, you know, that's not really what I do, but if you have a topic of conversation that you'd like me to bring up, you know, send it along. And he was sort of still trying to sell me on these ideas, and I was like, no, not really. And I mentioned, I was like, you know, I've done a lot of videos on movies. I've done some videos on my atheism. I've done, you know, some other random talking videos like this one sort of is. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I do. And then his next comment was, you know, well, why don't you love God? And, you know, that's the kind of question that, it's a very loaded question. I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't know if I want to say that's a loaded question. It's just a stupid question to ask. Especially when I've already established my feelings on the subject in the other videos that I've done on it. You can't, like, it's to me, it's saying, like, well, why don't you love the Easter Bunny? And I know that sounds like a stretch to well, you're comparing God to something silly, but I don't believe that God exists. I don't believe that that thing exists. So the question of why don't I love it, which again, I mean, and I didn't want to even get to the point of talking about why I wouldn't love the Judeo-Christian God that he was speaking of, because that is definitely a conversation in of itself. I just left it as, you have to establish that such a thing exists before I can even start to think about loving it. Like, I think you understand what I'm saying. So, this conversation sort of was he was asking a lot of, like, well, what about this kind of questions, but in a very strange way, and sort of talking about, like, well, how do you explain miracles, or how do you explain the prophecies in Revelation, but in a kind of roundabout way. He wasn't giving me specifics. And I said, like, you can't start with the Bible. The Bible is not the point that your burden of proof starts at. You have to start with establishing that there is a God, because if there isn't, then the Bible doesn't. You can't use the Bible as proof of God in any more of a sense than you can use Lord of the Rings as proof of elves, of which Legolas is one. You know, and he kept going, and I said to him, I was like, listen, I don't want to have this conversation if you're only going to try to quote me scripture. I know scripture. I probably know scripture and can quote it a lot better than a lot of people can. Not the best at it, but I know what I'm talking. I know basically what I'm talking about when I start talking about the Bible. So I don't need somebody to explain it to me. I understand it, and for somebody to try to quote Revelations as proof of something, and I said to him, I was like, there are thousands of holy books that make thousands of prophecies and claim to be proof for thousands of different gods. The Bible is just one of many. And that's the bottom line. And if you can't establish any evidence for what this deity is supposed to be, and he couldn't, and it sort of went from there. And he was like, well, what about an afterlife? What do you think happens when we die? And I was like, well, again, this isn't really saying, well, that's not what I'm asking for. But I explained my feelings on the afterlife, and the fact that, you know, it is very sad, but the human mind is an expression of biological processes. And unfortunately, when we die, those things stop. And it is very sad. But because of the fact that it's sad doesn't mean that we're better off thinking things that are not true. And then it boiled down to, you know, and he gave me a couple of other prophecies and said something about 9/11 and a dream that his mother had, which he was non-specific about. He never explained to me what the dream was. But I know a lot of people who dreamt about vaguely airplane-related things before 9/11. And you know what? I bet every night lots of people dream about vaguely airplane-related things. And even if, you know, there was some sort of prophetic element to people having these dreams, none of those people were able to do anything based on those dreams to stop it, so it would be useless anyway. It's like, again, this is a confirmation bias thing, where, yeah, you might dream about airplanes every night of your life, but you're only really going to remember it when the next day an airplane crashes into a building. But anyway, so I said to him, I was like, listen, I can't get into explaining all of the reasons why I don't believe, because it's just a waste of time. Like, it's a huge, I'm not saying that it's a waste of time for me to explain my position, but in that particular conversation, the burden of proof wasn't on me. And I didn't really want to waste any more time explaining how I felt to somebody who I felt really wasn't fully listening, and wasn't really going to be drawing anything from what I was saying. So I was like, you're a nice kid and everything, but I can't go any further in this conversation. To which he said, well, the only reason I ask is because I'm worried. And because of the fact that I'm at 9 minutes right now, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do a second video on the idea of somebody, theists in particular, saying to non-believers that they are worried about them. So stay tuned.